Thank you so much, Sammy. Again, my name is Kristina Hines. I am a certified business advisor with the Washington SBDC, which stands for Washington Small Business Development Center. So I'm going to explain just a little bit about our program. If you don't know who the Washington SBDC is, I'm just going to go into a brief explanation of who we are. So our program was actually created with the Small Business Act of 1980. So we've been in the state, we're one of the few states that enacted this program immediately. So we are 42 years old, and that's how long we've been in the state. What we do is we are a U.S. Small Business Administration program, and we are kind of the training and educational arm of the SBA. We run our program completely independent though, and we report numbers back to them of what we call impacts. So we track things for our clients. We have a very, very strict confidentiality standard, however, so we never release client information as to who the client is. But we do report on information such as what we call client and prep hours, which is our time with our clients face-to-face, and the amount of research that we do to help them reach their business goals. Our main mission is helping Washington businesses grow and succeed through advising, education, and research. We're located in WSU's research department, so we have access to an entire research team of interns who are phenomenal at what they do. And so if we ever get to, you have clients who need some more research done about their business idea and maybe where to put it and how well it's doing on a national level for that particular type of business, we can provide research to help in those situations and a whole slew of other ones. How we accomplish our mission is to educate and empower businesses by really the philosophy teaching a man to fish. So we educate on all types of things, such as understanding and analyzing financial statements, acquiring capital and managing cash flow, and what that means when you're going to look for a business loan. What do your financials need to look like? What can you afford? All the fun things that the bank is going to look at, we review with our clients first so that they have a better shot at getting the deal closed. We advise on marketing, anything you can think of in the marketing era, in digital now, social media, which is digital, but email, traditional print, those types of things. Planning and growing the business. So it's not always immediately available to get a commercial loan. So we will help small businesses learn to grow their business so that they have more cash flow to be able to get loans, make better decisions, to create value for both the business and the communities in which they operate. We have specific exporting advisors that will help determine what you need to export your products to Canada and globally. Again, I mentioned the market research already. Getting and keeping customers, reputation management, cost-cutting strategies, HR and regulatory compliance. I happen to be one of the HR specialists in the state. So I very frequently co-advise. One of the great things about our network is that there are 34 of us advisors throughout the state, and all of us have different areas of expertise. Now, we're all trained and we have extensive working knowledge, but some of us are experts in our field and we will co-advise for those particular items. So I co-advise a lot on human resources. We also will advise on business systems, record keeping, bookkeeping, why it's important, accounting, and then buying and selling businesses to get a initial valuation, a starting point for negotiations. We're not certified appraisers, but we can get a small business to a starting point. Okay, so today's presentation is on recruitment and retention strategies. And what we're trying to do here is really educate our small businesses on how they can combat what's going on right now with staffing woes and retention issues. And really what it's about is, you're not going to leave this presentation with a whole list of things that you need to change, because this is about a mindset shift. And So I always start with one of my favorite quotes from Zig Ziglar: you don't build a business, you build people, and then people build the business. One of the philosophies behind this is this wonderful book that I've read, and we actually, I don't know how many of you know it, but we have a chapter of SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, which is it is the leading professional agency for human resources. We have an island Skagit chapter, so we are combined with our Skagit friends, and we have a whole slew of webinars that we put on to our members. And one of them was a woman, Pia Maria Thorin, and she wrote a book called The Agile People Philosophy, along with some other professionals. And so that's really where I'm going to start with this presentation. It's choosing to adapt. So the Agile People Philosophy actually originated in the IT sector years ago to help organizations get the best talent and adapt to the changing workplace, right? So now we see in real life what happened to the IT world years ago happening now to small businesses who aren't in the IT world. And what this philosophy does is it really focuses on happy people rather than rigidity in processes, that hierarchical approach to business that we are so used to, which is, I'm the owner, I'm the manager, what I say goes. Really trying to shift that thinking into a more team-oriented approach that gives employees more autonomy and allows them to explore areas that they are happy with in their work life. We had a massive shift of expectations, and we're seeing that now in the post-COVID era, if we can even call it post-COVID at this point. That massive shift has kind of forced this view, and people are saying, well, what do I need to do to change my business? I can't get people hired. I have bad reviews on Indeed. What do I do to fix this? And so as we talk about some of the fundamental reasons or how to change these things, we have to talk about the fundamental reasons that they happen. So Douglas McGregor, he's a professor with MIT from the 1960s, came up with two different human view theories. The theory is human view X is that people dislike work, they find it boring, they'll avoid it if they can, they must be forced or bribed to make the right effort, they'd rather be directed than to accept responsibility, which they will shy away from at any given time, that people are motivated mainly by money and fear of their job security, and that they have very little creativity except for when it comes to getting around the rules. Then we have human view Y. And this is that people need to work and they want to take an interest in it. And under the right conditions, they enjoy it. They will direct themselves towards a target they accept. They will seek responsibility. They are motivated by the desire to realize their own potential, and that creativity and ingenuity are widely distributed and grossly underused. So what we're seeing with these two different human views, if you kind of close your eyes and figure out which one do you feel like you resonate more with, human X or human Y? Most people will say human Y. However, a large portion of business management over the years has made policies and decisions as if their employees have the view of human view X. So there's a really big gap that we're seeing in how decisions are made for a business and how the employees actually want the decisions to be made. The focus entirely on control rather than making the decisions to include your people in how they perform their work and what generally makes them happy. So the goal here is to shift your thinking into fostering the human view Y, since more people resonate with that. And obviously there's going to be some people that fall outside of that gap, right? None of these are a catch-all for all types of employees or people and what they want. But the massive gap between how most people see themselves and how most decisions are made is pretty significant. And it goes to kind of a culture, building a culture. So what is true? You need your employees more than they need you. If you take care of your people, they will take care of you. And humans have a basic need for belonging and connection. So we're naturally motivated to develop and maintain personal bonds with others. And that lack of interpersonal relationships can negatively impact our health, our ability to adjust, and our overall well-being. So the next piece I go into is why employees leave. And this is probably the piece that most people like the most because they really want some concrete answers. And so this list has been around for quite a while and it hasn't actually changed all that much throughout the years. It just seems like now we are paying more attention to it because the job market is so available right now. You know, people have so many choices. And so why employees leave? Their work arrangements aren't flexible, their boss lacks empathy, they feel disengaged, they feel undervalued, and this could either be through undervalued, there's not enough recognition, or the compensation is just not in alignment with what the expectation of the employee is, or what that role typically pays in the marketplace. The work culture is toxic. There's a lack of development and growth opportunities. They feel a lack of trust and lack of autonomy. They're overworked. They see other good employees leave, and they've had a change in personal circumstances. So why do they stay? They stay when their work environment is healthy and safe, when they consider their work to be meaningful, which is an interesting one. And I talk about this a little bit because what does meaningful mean, right? Isn't that subjective, right, to each and every person? And how do we make more mundane jobs feel meaningful? And it's really important with that mindset shift that I'm talking about to tie this in, that it's really about how you're telling your story for your small business, and how you need to remember that your employees are your secondary customers. Sometimes even we would say your first customers, right? So how do you make meaningful work out of something that seems mundane? And that's by telling the story of how important each and every employee is to the functioning of the business. And also having certain things in place, like we see a lot of social responsibility now through corporations and how they are giving back. And those things are really big for employees to feel that they're participating in meaningful work, even if their day-to-day job seems more mundane. They stay when their compensation is competitive, when they feel valued. So that's through rewards, recognition, and number one, respect. I cannot stress this enough. There was a small poll put out on just a random Facebook page for the island, and an overwhelming number of people said respect was the number one thing they looked for in a job. So that's at all levels, right? That respect is so important. And that goes back to the human view X and human view Y. Human view X doesn't give a lot of respect to employees. Yet, again, we've focused on making decisions and policies based on that disrespect or empty respect for employees. So they stay when there's flexibility in work arrangements and schedules, and that there's a scope for growth and development. Now, not one of these things is going to be your answer for how you change what's going on in your small business. All of these need to be considered together. One change, if there's a lot of problems within the business, one small change is really not going to make something that is impactful for the long term. Of course, you can raise compensation immediately and get a short-term resolution out of it. But if you have a toxic workplace or a toxic manager, it's really not going to help you for very long. So that's why we talk about a mindset shift, because that can then open your brain to new ideas. And one of the most important pieces that I'm going to get to right now, when people feel better, they perform better. Fostering those relationships is key. Fostering relationships and knowing your employees. And this is possible for people who have 300 employees, and people who have 30 employees, to people who have 3 employees. One of my favorite people is the executive director of the Economic Development Center in Port Townsend. And when I gave this presentation to them last year, it was a little bit different, and it's been modified since then. But one of the things that we talked about was, think about one of your best jobs. One of those jobs that you're just like, man, I really enjoyed myself there. And, a lot of times it's in our younger years when we're first getting started, because why? We probably had fun with our coworkers. And there's also pieces where there was less stress, right? Because we don't have the world on our shoulders. We're not carrying families just yet and all that fun stuff. But that fun piece is really important, and the connection you feel with your coworkers and with your superiors and with just the owners in general. It's so important to be seen so people know who you are and get to know your employees. And so we did a kind of an exercise of thinking about your top performing employee and your lowest performing employee. You can also do this with your highest paid employee, your lowest paid employee. List 3 things you know about them and 3 things they know about you. And, not just strictly in a work sense. This can be personal too. I have a client out in Mount Vernon who I went to visit them and check out their operations. And they were running a little behind. So I ended up talking to their manager for about 5-10 minutes. And within that 5-10 minutes, I was able to learn so much about her. She had weight loss surgery. She had a kidney transplant, all these little details about her and her life. And when I sat down with the client and I mentioned that, I was talking to so-and-so and they mentioned this, they were like, what? She's worked here 2 years. We had no idea. We had no idea that she had a kidney transplant. And while, diving into your employees' personal information can be quite uncomfortable, but getting to know them and allowing them to tell you what they want you to know about them is really important to fostering that relationship and making people feel like they're a part of the business, right? They're not just there to clock in and clock out. And it goes back to the meaningful work. So we talk about finding solutions. And I have to apologize. I failed to warn anybody here that I talk very fast through this presentation. So there'll be quite a long time for questions, because I do get a lot of questions. And if there are no questions, I can pose some that I have received in the past and how I've answered those to help kind of understand this mindset shift. So some solutions would be re-examining your work culture. Are you a toxic personality? When you walk into a room, what happens? Are people tensed up? Are they looking away? They're looking down. They're trying not to talk to you. Those are signals. You really have to be in tune with the signals people give you that are outside the scope of just a normal conversation. Because if people are that tense, you might need to work on your people skills a little bit better. Read some books on interpersonal skills and how to deal with conflict, mediation. Those types of things can help you learn to be a good listener and take it in stride when you receive that feedback. The client that I was just mentioning, I was super impressed because they decided to talk to their employees and get a better understanding of what was going on. And they really made some major changes to improve their culture. And they said, it was us, we did this. How do we fix it? How do we be better? And so that's really important in examining the work culture. If you have a toxic employee, if you have a toxic manager of some sort who's bringing everybody else down, but they're high output for operations and you need them, well, it's about re-examining how we deal with this situation, right? Maybe we provide them with some learning and growth opportunities so that they can learn to better manage people. Maybe we give tools to their subordinates to learn how to deal with a difficult manager. There's a great book called Managing Up that talks about this. But it's really, instead of thinking about giving the axe, which would be human view X, right? Would be, oh, get this person out of here, they're messing everything up. We don't want to do that. We want to say, okay, how can we mold this to work with our business? And it's possible, but it takes a lot of work. And it really takes that mindset shift to get there, to come up with ideas that will work for your unique business. That's one of the things here with recruitment and retention strategies, is that there's no one real solution for each business that I can say, okay, yeah, you need to do this. There could be a list of things that need to change. But being able to identify those types of things that can be changed in your business is really important. And that is something that owners and managers need to figure out based on that particular business. We can talk about reputation management. So this is when you find yourself in a difficult situation. You can't find employees because maybe you've been deemed not a great place to work. What do you do about it? You start talking about it. You start admitting that you made a mistake. You start admitting that you're working on it, and you're trying your best to change how the workplace is for you and for your employees to live happy lives. I always say that, the work-life balance is kind of, there's talk out there how it's a myth. And here's the thing, is that we've looked at work-life balance as a parallel for years, right? So you have a work life, you have a personal life, but the thing is they intersect. And for years, we're just ignore the fact that they intersect, and we just pretend that they don't. And of course, we want employees to try to compartmentalize and be able to do their work when life is difficult on the personal front. But it really takes acknowledging that these two intersect and that people need more support at certain times, whether it be through work or personal. And it's figuring out solutions that will help those employees manage the intersect of their personal life and their work life. So we talk about fair and transparent pay policies. Washington is one of my favorite states for this. I love that there is going into practice soon, because it's been signed into law, is that you're going to have to include the pay on all of your job postings, and as well as all the benefits that you offer. And while I do know that a lot of human resources, especially recruiters, do not like this idea because it will cause an influx of people who are not qualified, just trying to go after higher pay. So it's going to take a lot more work on their end, and it's kind of going to become administratively heavy. I think it's fantastic. I don't think that there's any reason that we need to hide our pay policies. And that doesn't mean either that you go and tell Joe what Sally is making. It just means that you have a salary range. So a range that can be expected for a certain job. And you can manipulate pay within that range based on qualifying factors. And you need to define those qualifying factors so that there is no impropriety with giving raises and bonuses and things such as that. So efficient onboarding and clear expectations. So here's the deal. If you're onboarding, so for those who are not in the HR world, what is onboarding? Well, that's the first day that your employee shows up for work, the training period. If it is not efficient, If it is chaos, that employee already has one foot out the door. They are questioning their decision, and you are now behind the curve of having a happy, healthy employee. Setting clear expectations. We do this with employee handbooks, notifying our employees what their rights are, what our pay policies are, how PTO is determined, what is sick pay, right? So sick pay is required in the state of Washington. And you are actually required to notify them of your sick pay policy, which is what the minimum of what the state approves, right? Or has regulated. Meeting those expectations of your employees is really going to help build that more positive work culture and build those relationships that you need to have that positive work culture. Empower with decision-making authority. So I get questions on this one sometimes because there are decisions that you can allow your employees to make. If you own a restaurant and something gets messed up, you can allow a server to comp food, right? If you own a retail shop, you can allow your retail employees to fix problems. This doesn't mean, though, that you get rid of a system of checks and balances. So empowering with decision-making authority allows them to solve the problems within their scope that won't cause undue harm to your business by allowing them to learn and make those decisions. This creates a feeling of pride in one's work, right? So again, this conversation a lot of, we just recently talked about it at our state fall conference, and that's, we're working with adults, not children, yet a lot of times we are restricting their decision-making ability based on wanting to have an extreme level of control. But really, if you allow decisions to be made at the level that they should be made at a lower level, that this is going to make people make better decisions. Obviously, if a poor decision is made, you talk about it and hope, they learn that this is not what fits in line with your business. But you still have controls on the back end that prevent extreme situations, such as if you have somebody working in your finance department, who has access to bank accounts and money, there needs to be some type of control there at the back end, just reviewing the work to ensure that they're, not stealing, these types of things. So allowing employees to determine recognition. So this is twofold. This means you ask them what they would like to see for recognition. I had somebody raise their hand when I was giving this presentation to the Anacortes Chamber of Commerce and said, well, if I just did like gym memberships or something like that, won't my employees be like offended? I said, well, maybe. I mean, that's why you need to know who they are. You need to know what they want. And I use the Clark Griswold example a whole lot. We don't want the Jelly of the Month Club, right? We don't want to do that. We don't want to just give upfront parking spots when that's not what matters to our employees. We want to figure out what matters to them. So as you determine recognition, you need to ask those questions of what they want to see, or really start thinking outside of the box of the human view why of what would I want to see if I were them. And then it also means allowing them to vote and determine who gets the recognition. So one of the tactics in this is, and it doesn't happen in a silo, it's not, management still has input, but giving them a voice as to which one of their peers they would choose to be recognized really gives them power in the business. And it can really help with morale. Fostering opportunities to connect. So again, thinking back to the fun piece, how can we connect our employees? What do they want? It takes a lot of knowing what they want to be able to foster these opportunities for connection. Provide learning and growth opportunities. So one of the reasons I don't talk about compensation a whole lot in this presentation is because I get the comment a lot that, well, we just don't have the money to increase compensation. What else can we do? You know, are we just doomed? And the answer to that is no. There are plenty of learning and growth opportunities that you can think outside the box to instill and put into your business that your employees can get value out of. You know, maybe you have somebody who's really good with the till, right? And they do all the bank deposits. Maybe you want to get them some extra knowledge on accounting. Maybe they hate that job and they'd rather learn more about customer service. There's all types of training programs and opportunities for learning. One of the other things that we identified with the exercise of thinking back to one of your most fun jobs ever, or excuse me, one of your best jobs ever, was that what we found was that those jobs, we're typically learning so much during that time. And that learning of a new skill, learning new information, challenging yourself really goes a long way to having people feel like they are giving back to not only their community, that they are giving to themselves, and that they're fulfilling the job that they came there to do, and more. Wellness and benefits considerations. This is an entire humongous topic, so I don't go into it very deeply, but there's all types of things you can put into place. I worked for an organization that did fit these, they weren't Fitbits, but they were along the lines of that, where you bought it for $30 and you got to compete against your coworkers. And if you purchased it and stayed in the program and did some competitions with your coworkers, you received a $500 bonus. And it was a push for wellness, to increase the wellness and drop some of the, get people healthier. So there wasn't as many claims on health insurance, because that's how health insurance is determined, right? Is typically year to year for your claim rates and your size. But there's a ton of ideas behind wellness and benefits that can be considered. And then finding flexible work solutions. Now, this one's an interesting one because, you know, work can be flexible now, right? We're all on Zoom. I'm working from my house right now, mainly because my heat was off at my office. But being able to offer flexible solutions to your employees is super important. And it's one of the things that we've seen year over year employees say they want. Now, a lot of times if you have a retail type business or a restaurant type business, finding flexible solutions is not the same as if you have a business that typically can work online or from home, performing admin work or data work or sales. So finding flexible solutions for those types of businesses might look a little different for those types, the different businesses, right? So thinking about how you can structure your work schedules to be more flexible for everybody's who's involved. I tell people one of the worst jobs I've ever had was I bartended at a really fancy Italian restaurant, but I was the new person. And so all the new people had to start working on a certain shift, and it was Sunday afternoon, but it was a dying restaurant. And it was Sunday afternoon at a fancy Italian restaurant. Nobody was coming in there to sit at the bar. So I ended up having to clean everything. That was my job. And I got paid $2 an hour to do it, because in New Jersey, that's what the minimum wage was for servers and restaurant staff. But it was one of the most eye-opening experiences for me, because, I mean, how is anybody supposed to make a living working like that, you know? Or walking home with $30 in your pocket after working a full day is not a good feeling. So trying to think outside the box of flexible solutions with, is everybody getting a fair shot? Obviously some people with tenure might get special considerations. However, if you really want to be fair and have a great work environment, it needs to really extend to all your employees, and thinking about how you can be more flexible in scheduling them is a great way to start. And then again, knowing your employees better will allow you to come up with really great flexible solutions that might work for your business. Because I can sit here all day and I say, you can try this, you can try this, you can try this, but really knowing your employees is what's going to make the difference as to if any of these things work. So this is actually, I always give this because this is a really great book to read, I think, for business owners. And because it's a super easy read, and it really puts some things in perspective of how we look at the workplace in the modern day era, right? So especially with how prominent tech is, it really gives us a way to think about the new workspace and what our employees want. And then if you want to know more about the human view X and human view Y and some of Douglas McGregor's theories, the book that he has written was The Human Side of Enterprise. And again, this was from 1960. So these theories that I'm pulling up, a lot of times I get the comment that, oh, it's just millennials came into the workplace and they've changed all this stuff and it's so terrible. And it's not necessarily generational. I think to an extent it is, of what people are willing to deal with, but I think there's a lot of factors, and this was slowly happening. I mean, like I said, these theories have been around since 1960, and some of the major jumps in technology and with the pandemic has really sped up what has kind of already been slowly changing over the years. And so when you think about how you can help your small business and recruitment and retention, it's really changing your workplace, along with providing clear expectations and really making sure somebody's going to be a good fit with your group of people. And again, knowing your people. So that is my presentation for today. We have 20 minutes, which is usually right on target. Does anybody have any questions for me? And also, this is my contact information. If you'd like to sign up to be a client, or you have any additional questions about the presentation, feel free to email me.
Oh, I was actually going to ask if we could get a copy of this recording as well.
Yes, I will send it out when we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Kristen?
Yes. Can I be heard?
Yeah. Can you hear Krista?
Yes.
Hello there. Can you, how do I put this? How can some of these be adapted for seasonal businesses where you don't have a set number of people working a traditional full-time job? So it makes it like in terms of retention, you're not looking at retention throughout the year, but trying to get people to come back year after year.
Yeah. So a lot of that work is going to be on the work culture area, right? Because people will come back to a place that they thought was a great place to work. Now, seasonal employment is really hard because people do move on, and they move on quicker. But it's really about fostering the relationship with them while they're there, learning a little bit about them and what their goals are. If you had somebody who was a seasonal worker and really wanted to be a nurse? Are there things that you could do with your business, like offer some tuition reimbursement if they come back for a second season? I've had the question of, well, what are we supposed to do if we can't hire people and we have all these people who are getting overworked? And, what do we do for them? And it's considering signing bonuses in a seasonal workplace might be something that you could use, a tool you could use to increase the number of people who come back, increase it for if they worked the prior season, they get more. You really can play around with some of these things. Making it a fun place to work is, really for me, when I think back on the seasonal jobs I had throughout my younger years, it was that having a camaraderie, knowing the same people were coming back, and new people too, but structuring it in a way where, well, if you come back, we'll give you XYZ, just to entice them to come back. And I know it's really hard as a seasonal employer too, to get to know your employees, because it's a lot of work to get to know them and then have them not come back. But the idea behind it is if you could foster that relationship, maybe they will come back, knowing that you support them, even if you know they're going to move on to a different job somewhere else. And it sounds like a money dump, really. It does. It sounds like, oh, we're going to throw all this money into training these people, getting them on board, and they're just going to leave, and we're going to be bleeding out money. But what we're seeing is that it doesn't necessarily happen that way, that people will come back if they find that the work experience was good and they were being paid well. And again, using some compensation tools or recognition tools to kind of entice them to want to come back might be something you could do for seasonal employment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So something Goosefoot's running into is we're not sure where to get the word out these days. Do you have any advice on that?
It's really tough, and it's tough for everybody, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's it's settled down now, but it was the most asked question of, I would say, 2022, is we're having staffing problems. We can't get anybody on board. We can't get anybody interested. What do we do? Where do we go? And really the answer is you have to just hit it from every angle you can think of, because even Boeing specifically said they're having a problem reaching entry-level hires. And I'm sure they have a great program, but they just put into place a TikTok campaign. Now, I don't recommend that for my small businesses, because you really have to have a solid plan for that. And a lot of people it just doesn't feel right. But using other social media tools, so LinkedIn, leveraging your other networks. So, leveraging EDC. Hey, we have this opening for this type of position. One of the things that we did actually for Skagit Island, I'm the treasurer of their board, by the way, the Skagit Island Human Resource Management Association, which is our local SHRM chapter, is we actually had we partnered with EDASC, which is the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County, and held a huge job fair. And the turnout was magnificent. We don't have follow-up information as to how many people were hired, how many businesses got their needs filled. We don't have that data yet. But those are types of ideas that we put into play, is to say, start collaborating with other local companies. Using your chambers of commerce, using your Facebook, LinkedIn are two big ones right now. And it's just tough. You can use a hiring agency if you wanted to. Obviously, you're paying a lot more for that. Well, nowadays with Indeed's fees, I don't even know how much more it would be, but just getting it up there in the digital space where people are looking. So when somebody wants a job, where do they go? And then we also want to make sure that we're hitting our diversity, equity, inclusion buckets and ensuring that, you know, maybe we have it posted in, you know, restaurants. You can partner with other organizations to have your jobs listed. And hopefully, you know, if somebody doesn't work out with one organization, then maybe that organization would be happy to recommend, you know, we don't have any jobs for that right now, but I heard Goosefoot did. Those types of things is really taking a lot more partnerships nowadays and collaborations. And we see that with the SBDC and how we are partnering with organizations now. It was a huge push when I came on board. Why aren't we leveraging our relationships within our communities to get the word out as to who we are and what we provide? And you can do the same thing with job postings. It's just know that it's really tough for everybody right now. Everybody's having a really tough time and it's not easy. And there's no solution that anybody's come up with yet that has really solved that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? And I know this presentation does, you know, that's why I leave a lot of time for questions, because it's like, wait a second, but how am I supposed to do this for me? And that's what it's one of those things where it's kind of like affirmations where they don't really work when you first look at it, right? But if you keep practicing it and keep looking for opportunities to foster those relationships and having a great place to work, you can really end up making a difference in the long term of how you're approaching these things, like the mindset that you're immediately defaulting to, because we all kind of default to that human view X. It's just programmed in us, right? So we have to try harder to look at it from human view Y and find those really creative solutions.
You may have already said this earlier, Kristina, if I got distracted.
Okay.
There's no cost to work with the SBDC, right?
There's no cost to work with the SBDC. We are, and you know what, I didn't say it, we are a free program. We survey our clients twice a year, and that's kind of how we accept our payment. It's just a survey of, you know, did you have an increase in sales? Did you hire any new employees? Did you not lay anybody off? Those types of things, we track them, and then that gets sent to the Small Business Administration, and it lets them better track really how we're doing in the grand scheme of things. We're working on some things right now with DEI to try to make sure that we are reaching out to the markets that need our help the most, who may know the least about us and what we provide. So yeah, we work one-on-one. And that's our main impact, is sitting one-on-one with clients. I have people who say, I don't want to bother you, but can I have a meeting? And I'm like, please bother me. That's like the only job I have, is bother me. Please sit with me and talk. And I have clients who, you know, we sit down and we actually run through projections, and we talk about cash flow and really data-driven sets. And then I have clients who are just like, yeah, man, I have this employee. I don't know if it's going to work out. Any ideas of how we could approach some of this stuff? And really just, you know, throwing spaghetti at the wall and getting feedback.
But yeah, if any of you guys are, you know, too shy here to talk about your personal situations, don't be afraid to reach out to Kristina.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And if you don't like me, if I'm too like, there's 34 of us. You can just say, I don't want that girl. No, but it's a great program. We're all, we have an accreditation agency through the Americas SBDC, which ensures that we're trained in all the aspects to be able to give the best holistic advice to our clients, so they can make those impactful decisions for their specific business.
Yeah, so just to for anybody out there on the call, if you haven't worked with SBDC, I highly recommend it. I've had a business advisor with SBDC for like 7 years now, and yeah, a little, part business advisor, part therapist, really helpful. But even basic things like before I sign a lease, I send it to them. Just to have a second pair of eyes on things.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, we try hard to just provide comprehensive solutions, and be there for our clients. And COVID was hard. We were therapists more often than not. Yeah. All right, well, if there's no other questions, I will give you a whole 7 minutes back. And yeah, if you guys need have any questions and you need anything, want to ask anything additional, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kristina. And thank you everybody for
you.
coming. I will get this recording out to everybody. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. Be sure to
All
check
right,
out
thank
the
you.
website for other upcoming workshops.
Awesome. Thank you, Sammy.